We're here to talk about life and lessons learned along the way. This week's guest is international baritone Anthony Tony Brown. Known for his vast repertoire that ranges from grand operatic arias to Broadway show tunes and Negro spirituals, Brown uses his music to promote peace and goodwill around the world. He has performed in such venues as the Annenberg Theater in Philadelphia, the Playroom Theater in New York City, and the Festival Theater in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Brown also performed across Europe, Asia, and Africa on a mission to inspire unity and goodwill among diverse groups of people. Brown's vocal style has been described as warm and noble. One of his latest projects is a one-man show titled I Go On Singing. It's all about the controversial and dramatic life of the famous singer, actor, athlete, lawyer, and activist Paul Robeson. Brown has been performing the show to standing ovations around the world. He's a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a graduate of Heston College, where he serves as artist in residence. Coming up, we'll talk about Brown's life and his musical mission, which aims to bring people of all stripes together through song. We'll discuss how the power of music changes hearts and minds and makes our world a better place, and how Kansas and Heston College figure in all this. This promises to be an inspiring and enlightening half hour as I go one-on-one with baritone Anthony Tony Brown right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'm so excited to welcome acclaimed singer Anthony Tony Brown to the program. Tony, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into the backstory of your life and your responsibilities here at Heston College, tell us, what are your duties there as the residence artist?
Well, right now I'm working with a program which I founded in 2007 called Piecing It Together, using songs and stories to bring people together across various divides. Stories are basic to the human experience too, and they're filled with wonderful things that reflect our common stories. And music, of course, is that same thing. And so I am working with students, along with a couple other people on our faculty, to create programs and to engage other artists from South Central Kansas in collaborating on programs that will help to bring desperate groups together through stories and songs.
Now, songs. Did you grow up singing? Just what is your background? How did you get into the music world?
Well, you know, I think I've been singing for almost all of my life. From the time that I was just a little child, I've been singing. I started studying voice when I was 16, and essentially for most of that time, since I was 16, for the majority of that time, I've been studying voice. I'm not doing it now, but I have been studying voice for almost all my life.
Now, you are a graduate of Heston College.
I am.
First, you're from Pennsylvania.
I'm from Pennsylvania.
So how did you find Heston, and why Heston? And what did you study at Heston?
Yeah, well, when I was 16, I left my family and I moved to Ohio at the encouragement of my parents to attend a religious private school, and I got to know a lot about the Mennonites. because it was a Mennonite college and the Mennonite high school, and the high school was in a Mennonite community. And so a lot of my friends, when we graduated, were going to a place called Heston College, and they really wanted me to join them. So
a Mennonite school.
Heston College is
Yes.
a Mennonite school, but it's a Mennonite school for all.
Right.
But so I came out with some of my high school friends, and it actually proved to be a very positive experience for me. I learned a lot. My world was opened up because I was no longer in the East. I was now in the Midwest, with all of the peculiarities and uniquenesses of the region. So that was a good experience for me. At Heston, because it was then a 2-year college, I didn't have a major because it was not a 4-year college. I had to go on to another school to do that. Now that's not the case. We have lots of 4-year programs.
Right, right. Now, you have a very interesting story about your very first, quote, public performance.
Yes.
Tell us that story, and what do you remember about it?
Yes. Well, when I was 8, my parents left the inner city of Pittsburgh in the heart of the African American community with all of the richness of that experience. And they decided that they wanted their children to be in an environment where the schools were better than they were in the inner city of Pittsburgh. So we moved, and my world turned upside down because I was the only black child in my 3rd grade class. And I remember, as though it was just 5 minutes ago, walking into that class for the first time. And as I walked into that classroom, I could hear this nervous laughter all around the room. And then I started hearing the N-word, and I realized that I was in the wrong place. I mean, I certainly didn't feel comfortable.
You were the only African American, I'm assuming.
I was the only African American in that classroom, and my family actually were the only African Americans in that school, in that elementary school. My brothers and sisters. I had one brother and one sister that were going to that school too. They were older than me. So one day, maybe 3 months in, a man, a very distinguished-looking man, came into the room, classroom, walked over to my teacher, said a few words to her, and then came directly to my desk and said, "Come with me, please." And then I'm afraid. I don't know what I've done. And so I go with him, and when we get out into the hallway, he gets down on one knee and he looks me straight in the eye with the warmth on his face, and he says, "I hear you can sing. What about we go around to the other classes and you sing for them?" Mm-hmm. Well, at 8, I didn't know that I had any special skills related to singing, but the music teacher who we met with once a week must have thought that I had some kind of special ability. So she told people, and it got to the superintendent, and I went around the room, around the school, and I sang these songs, and it was transformative for me, meaning that the students who maybe once were a little bit uncertain about me suddenly began to embrace me. Mm. And I owe a lot to that man who did that for me. I mean, he didn't have to do that. He could have been very indifferent, but he wasn't. He called something forth in me, which then called something forth in them. Mm-hmm. And
the power of music.
The power of music.
So after that, you developed a certain skill, a certain style for singing.
Oh, yes.
You have your own style. I've seen you perform.
Yes, you've heard me sing.
And I've heard you sing, yes. So how did you develop that style of singing?
You know, when I was 16, and I moved from my family to that Mennonite college, or Mennonite high school, the music teacher came over to me and said, I have a study hall when you have a study hall. How about we go to my office and we work on vocal technique? And it's a classical vocal technique. Mm-hmm. How about we work on that? And I said, well, okay, that would be fine. And we did. And then he would enter me into competitions, and I would win them. Oh. And I began to understand that I enjoyed singing. I actually loved it, but I began to understand that I actually had some talent. And of course, he saw it because I auditioned for the choir when I got there. And so I owe a lot to him for actually approaching me and then working with me. And many years later, when I thought of him, I called him and I said, Mr. Ewing, I'm calling to thank you. I didn't realize the significance of what you did for me, but I want you to know that I am thankful because you wouldn't have to have done it. Well, he said, would you come here and sing a concert? I said, yes, Mr. Ewing, I'll do it for you, but I don't want any pay. I'll just come to Columbus, Ohio, and I'll do it for you. And I did it. And at the end of the concert, the people jumped out of their seats, and there was Mr. Ewing in the front row. I went down and got him and brought him to the stage, and I started clapping, and they started clapping.
Wow. So did he develop you into that baritone that you are today?
Well, no.
I see tears coming down
I'm
your
thinking
eyes
about Mr.
from
Ewing.
telling that story, yes.
No, he didn't develop that. At 16, my voice hadn't fully developed yet. You know,
right.
At 16, but no, it came later.
So what are some of the performances you do around the world and the country?
Well, right now,
I know one that I've seen you in,
well,
which
right now,
we'll talk about later.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I do concerts of spirituals,
Okay.
The music of the enslaved people. Mm-hmm. I have a concert that I do called Embracing American Song. Okay. I do classical concerts where I sing classical songs of the various stripes and varieties. Those are the big ones that I do. But the one that we're going to talk about is the one that's occupying most of my time right now.
Yeah. And it is, of course, about Paul Robeson.
Yes.
And before we start to talk about it, let's show a little clip of a little promo of Paul Robeson.
Yes.
Get on board, the little children, get on board, the little children, get on board, the little children, there's room for many a more.
Okay, that was Paul Robeson, Tony Brown in his one-man show called I Go On Singing. Now that the audience has a little taste of what you do,
yes,
why have you focused on Paul Robeson?
You know, Paul Robeson was a figure that I knew about as a child because we had some of his records. And I was taken in by that deep, rich bass voice, which was quite impressive. And he was such a specimen of a man, a big man. And then it was later in my college years that I returned to Robeson, reading about him in college and learning more about the reach of this man, the skills of this man, and the dedication of this man for human rights and peace all around the world. And I kept him with me. I don't know why, but I kept him with me. And I think it was a combination of his music, but also his life story of being an ambassador for what he called the common people. Mm-hmm. And I could relate to that in a very profound way. And so they blacklisted him, and lots of people don't know who he is, and a man of his stature and capacity needs to be known. And so that's how I got into doing it.
Now, Paul was an attorney. He was a singer, an actor, an athlete, professional athlete, and what else? Did I leave anything out?
Star of the stage and screen.
Yeah.
An ambassador for human rights.
And traveled the world.
Traveled the world.
So what kind of reaction or responses have you received from this presentation that you make in your one-man show?
The responses really have been overwhelmingly positive. So many people say to me after the shows, where can I read about this man? I had no idea. Thank you for doing this show. I think only one time since I've done that show have people not jumped out of their seats and applauded. Mm-hmm. Because Paul Robeson is somebody that we really should applaud. We say in the show, before Rosa Parks, before Martin Luther King, before Nelson Mandela, there was Paul Robeson.
Yeah, he was beginning to form this the beginning of the civil rights movement.
Exactly. He's the precursor to that, and he helped to make that happen. So the responses have been overwhelmingly positive.
He was in Washington testifying because he was accused of being a communist.
Yes, he was.
And we do have a little clip of that we'd like to just show the audio to hold a small portion of that event in many years ago in Washington, D.C.
Are you now a member of the Communist Party?
Oh, please, please, please.
Please answer, will you, Mr. Robeson?
What is the Communist Party? What do you mean by that?
Are you now a member of the Communist Party?
Would you like to come to the ballot box when I vote and take out the ballot and see?
So at what point did you realize that you could make a career out of singing?
Well, I think it was when I was living in Seattle, and I was working with a vocal coach and teacher whose name was Julian Patrick. He was an internationally acclaimed singer. He sang with all of the great opera stars. If you named them, like Luciano Pavarotti, Jesse Norman, we could go on and on. He'd sung with them, and he and I ultimately ended up doing some performances together, which was, for me, the ultimate affirmation of my abilities. And that gave me the confidence that I could sing professionally, and I was able to find an agent, and I was able to be booked, and that was very gratifying, because one of the reasons why I did not major in music when I was in college was that I didn't think I had a chance.
Well, that's what I was coming to, because you became a singer in the end, but did not study music to the point where one would think you would have done so to perform.
Exactly. I majored, my undergraduate degree was in psychology, my master's degree was in social work, and I was still studying voice, but I didn't think that I could become a professional singer. But in some ways, I would say my dream came true. I wanted to be a professional singer. I loved the other too. Mm-hmm. But what I've been able to do is use the wisdom that I got from my graduate studies in social work, together with my music, to take music in a different direction, one that intentionally creates social change or relational change, to try to bring people together across divides where there's tension, make adversaries friends. And I think music is a great tool to help make that happen.
So Tony, are you happy?
I'm very happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, put it this way, I'm very fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
Yes, fulfilled. I think it's deeper than happy.
Okay.
Yes.
So is there a difference between being a good singer and being a good performer?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Tell us about them.
Well, there are lots of good singers, but who have good voices, but performing takes it to another level. You know, I can sing, but I can get on a stage too, and I can be a character.
Right.
You know, that's performing. I could also, and I think other singers do it too, I could be standing on a stage giving a recital, but I'm also performing. Performing, I think, has more to do with delivering something rather than just singing it. Mm-hmm. And I think I've learned how to deliver something.
Okay. You know, we play a little game on this show.
Yes.
Most of the time it's a word game.
Yes.
But for you, we want to hear that voice a little more, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to show you a picture, and you sing a couple of bars, lines, of whatever song immediately pops in your mind when you see this picture. So we begin. Here we go.
When the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me.
All right. And the next one is that one.
Yeah, that's a church.
Yes.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Beautiful. All right, here is one more. A lion.
In the jungle, the quiet jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.
Okay. And we have the final one.
If we can see each other's light, then we can be each other's light. And all the war and hate will disappear.
Very good. Beautiful, beautiful. Bravo.
Thank you.
So in your performances around the world, where you've been performing all over Canada, United States, et cetera, what have you discovered about music's impact on people and on life in general?
Music is a powerful thing. It goes in to the core of a soul in a way that nothing else can. It ignites feeling and emotion. It charges one's sensibilities. It's an intense experience, typically. I think it can set the stage for bringing us to something quite profound and basic, and that is that we share it. We all share music. There is no place that I've ever been where people don't enjoy music. And if we can get together with music, there are many other things that we should be able to get together with too.
It is known as a common language, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true.
In 2002, the United States government sent you to Bosnia
Yes.
To perform.
Yes.
What did you perform, and what was that all about?
I went there primarily to be an encourager for the work that was going on in Bosnia at the time. The war had just ended. The UN peacekeeping force was there to keep the peace. And in my travels there, they were bringing together some of the factions, the Serbs, the Croats, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews, as a way of trying to build some rapport, some positive rapport. And I had an experience at the end of my stay there, which really was the catalyst for the organization that I started called Piecing It Together. When at the end of my singing at this big, in this big concert hall with standing room only, the people were in there and they represented the various factions. And at the end of He's Got the Whole World in His Hand, they jumped out of their seats and they surrounded me and they said, "You're a peace ambassador. You are a peace ambassador." Now, they were calling something out of me which I hadn't considered. Right. And it really was, for me, a life-changing experience. And it's an experience, I'm sure, if you talked with them today, they would remember it very clearly.
So, Tony, what's your next project, big project?
You know, that's a good question. What is going to be my next project? One thing it won't be, and that is to fade away into the sunset. But I don't have a clear-cut answer for that, except I want to excite a new generation of people, young people, to grab a hold of this vision about using the arts as a way to bring people together. And right now I'm working at Hesston College on that. But I would like to work on that more broadly than just at Hesston College.
When you're not singing or performing, what do you enjoy doing?
Well, you know, I live in Pennsylvania in a log cabin on a plot of land, and I'm working in the yard. I'm cutting wood. I'm, you know, planting flowers, planting a garden, and that is very life-giving. Nature, for me, is a very sacred thing, so it's really quite satisfying. I feel like I've connected to something quite profound, and I'm very satisfied, even just cutting the grass.
Right. So, looking at your life's experiences to today,
yes.
What have been the lessons learned along the way?
Well, one of them would be, don't get full of yourself. Stay focused. Stay focused to your craft and realize that you are just a vehicle. You are, well, they called it out. They said, you're a peace ambassador. Right. You're a vehicle for a cause. You're not any different from anybody else. There are lots of important things that people do every day right here in this town.
On that note, acclaimed international baritone, Anthony Tony Brown, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. And I want to thank you for watching this week's edition of One-on-One. One-on-one at kpts.org is our email address if you have any questions or comments. I'm Victor Hogstrom. Be safe, and I'll see you again soon.